As is a little bit of custom while we're waiting on a few more to hop in, anybody have anything specific they'd like to share before we get started?
Yeah, I'll say that I've I put out an LOI last week that we've not necessarily formally executed it, but the seller is happy with it. He wants to meet, kind of go over everything before entering into any further negotiations. So I'm flying down to West Palm Beach later this week to meet with him and explore his whole operation and get to know him a little bit better before we kind of execute an LOI. So I think that's a pretty good indication that he's how much he values his business. And
that's great. That's great, Carl. Congratulations. What kind of business is it?
It's a high-end cabinetry design installation company.
Nice.
Which was kind of on my list of things I was looking at. Personally, as far as my background and fit, it's pretty good. I really love the design aspect of all that. They're very interesting. The broker's great. Broker's a real good guy. They're in a great market base, very consistent kind of year-over-year revenue. Never really grew the business. The husband and wife been around 42 years. The wife is already retired. The husband kind of really FQs much more into the design aspect than really the business. So it was less kind of focused on growing that, more kind of focused on the design aspect. But they have a fantastic reputation, been around that market for a long time. So I think some good opportunity there to kind of take that a little further.
That's great. Oh, congratulations. Wonderful. Wonderful.
I think I mentioned, Carl, if you get the LOI, reach out to Kelly because she just recently closed in the cabinetry business. And I know Gloria, who's on this call, went really deep into a cabinetry business as well a while back. So might be worth reaching out.
Yeah, I'd be thrilled to hear any feedback. Anybody else had experience with that? Any points of insight?
Very good. Well, Hayden, I will turn it over to you, let you take the mic and lead us on.
Sure. So the purpose of this call is to talk about the use of AI, both in the deal search and diligence process, as well as how to use it when you're actually running a company and what that might look like in terms of growth opportunities and how that also might change some of the ways you do diligence going forward. So I'm going to share a bit of what I'm doing as a business owner while running Acquira, starting with some of the sort of easier to use implement cases and then scaling up to a bit more custom stuff. And then we'll also go over what can sort of be applied, like I said, to the deal search and diligence process. Some of this is theoretical, some of this we're planning on implementing. So yeah. Last thing, I'm sure a lot of people here are also using AI a bunch. So I would love to give people some time to also share what they've been doing. So if you have something that you'd like to share at any point, if you could just maybe leave a chat in this Google Meet and just say, hey, I've got something I'd like to share. I'll make sure to leave you at least 5 minutes towards the end of the call. So I guess I'll give some very basics in terms of like which tools to use, how to use some of the more basic LLMs. All of the LLMs are good for the use cases we're looking at here. I think each one has slightly different advantages and limitations. For the sake of time here, I'm probably just going to talk about ChatGPT as it's the most popular. But if people do have certain questions about any of the others, happy to address it towards the end. So one thing you should know, let's go to ChatGPT here. So it has different models. Each chat that you have has a context window. That context window, if you're using O4, is about 128K tokens or about 100,000 words. So basically, after 100,000 words, both combined input and output, it starts forgetting things. Outside of that, however, it has a memory, and LLMs really become useful as you kind of train them and ask them to remember things. So I use it for everything. It's kind of my therapist, literally everything, and so it remembers everything about me. But you may want it to remember certain things about your investment thesis, what industries you're interested in, it's specifically your thesis, and also deals that you've looked at, what you liked about them, what you didn't like about them. It will refer to that again in the future. It's got a pretty big memory, When you're kind of running out of memory, it'll tell you how full you are, but it'll remember, hundreds of things. One of the things you can do really quickly, so probably people aren't aware that you can like screenshot things and it can take any image and understand text. So you can also upload sims to it at any time, right? Just start up a chat, download a PDF, literally put it in, upload the sim, ask it to look for different things, that it already remembers about you. One thing you could do, which would be very simple, would be to download the intrinsic value calculator, like open a new chat, download the intrinsic value calculator, upload the intrinsic value calculator, and even screenshot some of the Thinkific training about it into that window. And it will just basically be your screening partner for any deal. And you can, in that single chat, you can basically ask it questions about the deal. And you could, if you wanted to know more specifics on the size of the MSA, the number of households in the MSA, all that stuff, you can just ask it, right? You no longer have to be using Google constantly and writing things down. ChatGPT Pro has a couple interesting features, one of which I use a lot, which is deep research. And so that came out fairly recently, but it's quite incredible. So for example, I use it consistently for like pay bands and hiring. If I want to hire someone, I'll just ask deep research to figure out the pay band for that very local place. This is also useful during diligence if you understand whether your people are being fairly paid. You can have them do pay bands on every single position. It takes what would take someone probably dozens of hours and compiles a whole bunch of data. So you could compile government data, census data, or you could even just say, hey, literally find me 50 job offers on Indeed in this space for this thing, and show me the pay band on that, which obviously isn't as good as using $20,000 software that has all this market research, but it's free. You can also use deep research you can ask it to make a list of all the brokers in Texas, and it will do it. If you just ask ChatGPT, it'll give you a handful of them. If you ask deep research, it'll give you a very comprehensive list. If you get kind of further into these integrations, you can set up with no code, like a Gmail integration, and you can have it email every single one of those brokers, right? You can set up with no code an Airtable integration, and you could have all of those emails record into a custom CRM. And one could imagine you could do the exact same thing with off market, right? Operator, for those that haven't used it, I haven't used it much, but Operator basically just takes over your screen. So it can be used for all sorts of no code scraping like behavior that could integrate all of these things together as well. So for example, you could say, go find me a list of brokers in Texas, and then send them an email introducing me to set up a call to talk about any deals they may have, and it'll just go off and do it. There's a lot of sort of custom integrations you can do, which I can get into, but I just want to stop for a second here because I've said a bunch of stuff, make sure everything I'm saying makes sense if anyone has any questions so far.
What did you say about pay bands? You said you can, what was the word?
Oh, just like pay band research. So for example, if I wanted to hire a journeyman plumber in a very specific market, I can look up to see if they're like, if the offer is, or what they're being paid is top, 50th, 60th, 75th percentile or lower, right? So just understanding whether people are fairly paid, or in my cases, if I'm hiring somebody new, understanding how much I should offer.
So what might be the prompt for something like that?
I have an actual prompt that I'll share here. Well, here I would do this with deep research. So this is a slightly different prompt than what I'll share. But I would basically say, find research how much I should pay a journeyman plumber, service plumber in Texas or whatever location. Only look at, and then I could say a combination of different sources of data. Like for example, I wouldn't want to see Glassdoor because I don't really trust self-reported income stuff. And it would ask me typically 1 or 2 clarifying questions, and then it would just go and do it. In this case, deep research takes about 10 minutes or so to do. Here's an example of a prompt I use often. Just gonna put it in the chat here. So I just call it AI hiring. And so this prompt is just, it remembers whenever I say AI hiring, do this. And so basically it says here, for those who aren't reading, whenever I make the prompt AI hiring, I'd like you to do the following: ask 5 questions one at a time in order to understand the role, create a job description for the position, tie each responsibility to a metric, apply top grading to each responsibility, identify the ideal background, including previous job title and past experiences for the role, identify the compensation for the role that's in the top 50th percentile for base pay and in the top 80th percentile for bonus, or OTE, which is kind of our pay philosophy at Acquira. So what this then does is it basically does the equivalent of what an HR person would probably spend the better part of a week doing. And if you just go and ask, like you don't, it doesn't need any training, just go ask ChatGPT that about any position, and you get a very good response that requires a little bit of finessing, specifically probably on the metric part, but it requires less and less finessing as you input more and more memories about what your company does.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, brother Hayden, how you doing? This is
Good.
Mark from Detroit now in Tucson, Arizona. I moved here now, bro. So
How's it
I
going?
wanted to ask, are you going to be covering about white label GGPs?
White label GPTs? Like
Mm-hmm.
just creating like a custom agent and labeling it for a niche case?
Yeah, well, basically, when you're building your own GGP and customizing it for it to do whatever you want it to do, as far as like the market research and like making phone calls and setting up like a GGP interface.
Yeah, so it's a slightly more sophisticated use case. We are actually doing that right now at Acquira. So we're going to use Claude. So Claude has something called MCP, which is effectively like a server, so you can create a knowledge base for everyone else to access and then create agents that then interact with that knowledge base. And actually that will be implemented for everyone at Acquira using the accelerator. You can just have basically your AI buddy to chat with about deals. How to actually do that is probably outside of the scope of this call. But I will say we did some research, and for our purposes, Claude is what made the most sense.
Awesome. Congratulations too, man, because that's going to be sweet when you guys launch it.
Yeah, it's the outcome I wanted out of this call is for anyone here who is not using AI every day would be that you use AI every day. If you use AI every day, I will guarantee you, and you're not doing it until now, I will guarantee you in 30 days, your mind will be blown, like absolutely blown.
Completely. I've used it to write sniper. I use ChatGPT to write sniper bots for crypto meme trading.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, sweet, definitely.
One integration. Any other questions?
No, thank you so much, Hayden. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Good to see you guys.
From a deal search side, like I said, there are certain tools you can use with ChatGPT, and you can again just ask ChatGPT how to do it in terms of how to create lists and scrape businesses. And it's far, far easier now to contact them and even have personalized conversations without you. So that's something that we do quite a bit of at Acquira. we are about to launch something internally that I'm really excited about, which is basically I really hate like the aspect of business that is cracking the whip, and the aspect of business that is, you know, reporting and data entry. So we've created basically an integration that records all phone calls, and then based on those phone calls, there are different knowledge bases for the type of call. So for example, there's knowledge base for a call with the seller, and there's knowledge base for a call with a prospective AE, and then there's knowledge base for each of the phases of actual fulfillment from within Acquira. So deal search, post LOI, post FID. And then based on that, it actually grades the call across a whole bunch of different areas, does all of our reporting for us, does all the follow-ups for the call, well, reaches out to the salesperson or whoever took the call to get some approval, and gives basically, so right now on the sales side, we're grading based on pain discovery, urgency, asking for the sale, listening, and then actual qualification. So it listens into the call and basically says, did you qualify the business by revenue, age, take-home earnings, number of employees, tax returns filed, etc. Then it drafts 3 follow-up emails with timing recommendations, and then it records in Salesforce. We use Salesforce, basically everything, and so it basically automates our scorecards. Well, that will be the goal when it's done. It automates all of our scorecards. So that's an example of like me using it just to solve a problem I don't like solving manually, but you can literally use it to solve anything. That's just one example. Another thing, so we have fulfillment engines. I've shared it a bunch with people, but basically our fulfillment engine is like a flow chart of process on how you fulfill, you know, different sets of process. Actually, I'll just for people who are unaware, I'll just share my screen quickly. So like this is the fulfillment engine for the Acceler Plus finding a deal, right? I think we've gone over this in previous calls, right? This is the fulfillment engine for the sort of phase 2 and phase 3 pieces, right? So this is kind of phase 2, goes all the way down into phase 3. All of these link to an SOP, right? So you just kind of click through here and it links to an SOP. And this is how we teach all our businesses to, this is like the basis of the operating system, is you have a growth engine, a fulfillment engine, they all link to SOPs. The beauty of this is if you make this fulfillment engine, you can literally screenshot it, put it into ChatGPT, and basically ask how much of it understands. It usually understands almost all of it. And then you can do something like an SOP. So what I'll usually do is I'll either create one SOP and upload it and say this is the standard I want for all my SOPs, or I'll do a simple prompt like this, which I'll just copy in, right? I need an SOP document structured as follows: title, objective, begin, end, stakeholders, blah, blah, blah. And it will literally just create all the SOPs for your fulfillment engine. And they are very good. Like, they require some massaging, like I said. But again, if process or operations is not your strength, this is, it's just incredible. Like, this would take most companies months to do. And of course, there's still some time involved with like making sure everything is right. And that's why I usually will put in the fulfillment engine and ask questions of the AI to make sure it fully understands what's happening and who's involved. But anytime right now, I can literally, like at this point, I can just ask ChatGPT, hey, anything about any person in the company, any metric in the company, or any process in the company, and it knows perfectly. And so the next step is then making that a sort of mutual shared database for all employees, right? Any questions about any of those use cases?
Have you used it for marketing in a specific industry or anything like that?
I
In sales?
So I'm using it in sales for sales management. The voice to voice isn't there yet for actually having like sales agents take calls, but it's not far. It's probably, like right now it's perfectly capable. It's just the lag is a bit weird and it feels unnatural. I think we're maybe 6 months away from that though. I've used it for like it basically handles all of the prospecting in the company now. So it's not so much about, well, yeah, it is about ChatGPT. It's like through personalized text. For content, yes, we use it quite a bit for content. I basically just use it. I personally use it for everything, right? Like I wouldn't come to, at this point, I would never come to a call like this without asking ChatGPT a whole bunch of things about what should I cover, right? It's just, what I've actually found in business, and this kind of goes back to, I used to program 20 years ago. And in programming, spending time in the design phase, right? Every hour you spent in the design phase kind of saved you multiple hours later on, right? And I found the same is true in business, right? For every hour you spend sort of designing something well from the start, it's the less time you have to spend managing in the future, right? Because you have clarity right from the start usually. So what I found is probably the best use of AI is the ability to do what would take probably 50 hours of design in 1 hour, right? And so like the example I gave with this, AI hiring, actually creating a job description that links to metrics, you could take that farther and link those metrics to processes and then create the process. Like you could do that all in 2 hours, right? One of the things that we teach in the ACE framework is people and culture and the people and culture position. And that position involves creating something called clarity boards. And those clarity boards are like a one-stop shop for your employees to know like what their meetings are, what their scorecards are, what their job description is, kind of what the company mission and handbooks and all that stuff all in one place. And that has always historically been a really big lift, right? Especially if you have a company with 20, 30 employees, it's been a really big lift. With AI, it can be done in 2 days, right? What would normally have been like, obviously you still need to train and everything else. Creation of it would have taken weeks, right?
That is awesome. I've seen it take out like whole marketing departments where it takes marketing for like forever to do. It does it like in probably 2 hours really quick. Yeah, I've seen that.
This is super helpful, Hayden. Thank you. I think you kind of covered how you use AI in your to help with sourcing deals or vet deals. Like I'm wondering specifically, how do you use it to scrub for opportunities that meet your search criteria? Is there like an integration that you've created with like BizBuySell, or does it just scour the web? And maybe just a little bit more detail on like best practices to increase deal flow.
So are you talking on market or off market, or should I try to cover both?
I'm super interested in both. I've been doing primarily on market search right now, but I'd love to know if you have figured out ways to incorporate off market too.
So on the on market side, in terms of like deal flow, you could have it, your issue is going to be in signing NDAs. So there, I don't want to tell people to get AI to sign NDAs for them, but it is possible, is what I'll say. I'm not necessarily suggesting it. That being said, from like a screening perspective, yeah, you can just, like I said, literally just open a new chat, upload the sim, and then ask it any question you want about the sim. Or if you've trained it at all, you could just say, what parts of this sim match and do not match my investment thesis, right? And again, all you really need to tell it is to remember what your investment thesis is,
Okay.
right? And it will get it pretty much, I can almost guarantee it will get spot on. You can upload financials and you can say, hey, look at these financials and let me know of anything odd. You can ask it to look at any large changes year over year, because a lot of the time that's not, shown. You can ask it to compare percentage costs to benchmarks for the industry, and it'll know, right? It'll say, hey, your insurance cost is really high on this business. And then you can ask a question, why is your insurance cost high? But you don't know that necessarily because you may not know the benchmark, right?
Yeah. Got it. And what about like, do you also use it to like source opportunities for you? I mean, even on market, like, do you use it to scrub deal stream and biz buy sell? Is that something it can do where it's could like do generating lists of businesses that meet your criteria?
Yeah, so we, first of all, we already scrape a bunch of different areas, right? And so that's the stuff that goes into ClickUp. And so typically what we do is we scrape to Airtable. And so, and that's not difficult to do. Like anyone could do that on this call pretty easily. And then from Airtable, you could also have just a simple ChatGPT integration into Airtable to have it look at any of that data, right?
Okay.
Which is also super useful. Right when we started, like literally a minute before we started this call, I was just curious. I put deep research on just checking business brokers in a city, and it gave me a list of like, with their phone numbers, emails, names, company name. It gave me a list of like 150, right?
That's awesome.
So you could easily, like I said, just set up something so that it automatically, and there's like plug and play stuff out there already, like stuff Mark was talking about, that can just automatically email those people, or automatically text them all.
Awesome.
And text has like really good delivery rates, that's going to all end with AI, but for now it does.
Awesome. Thanks. That's helpful. What about, you said that you also have some thoughts on generating off-market opportunities using AI?
Yeah, same idea. Like off-market is create a list. And so AI is great at creating lists, right? And it's lists of businesses that match your criteria. Exactly what I just said about the business brokers, you apply that to HVAC businesses, right? And then contact the list. And again, same idea, you can contact at scale in a personalized fashion. What would normally just be totally impossible to do otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But totally, yeah, it's exactly the same idea. There are tools out there that allow you to, like, we use our own custom tools, but there are tools that allow you to link it to your Calendly account, automatically set up calls for you.
Got it.
On that topic, is there a way that we can obtain the owner's contact information if you haven't pulled a list of off-market deals?
You can, and you can get ChatGPT to do it for you, right? So there are various tools that can do that. I haven't used. It's a good idea. I haven't really used it to actually ask it, like, say, at scale, just have it look up several sources of this person's phone number, but it probably like use white pages and all these other things.
Yeah, I did. I actually tried that, Hayden. Like I looked for like all HVAC. What I was trying to do is I actually gave it a very specific query. I said, look for all HVAC companies that were established more than 10 years ago, with, where possible, like the income reported is more than X amount, right? And potentially has like more than X number of employees, right? Depending on what sources they can pull from. Like the weirdest thing is, like, to Hassan's point, like it gave me like some companies, but then it said due to privacy issues, it couldn't give me like personal emails and phone numbers for any of the said owners from that. And that's where I was like, I need to figure out a different way. I didn't know if there was like a way to combine it with some of the tools that you're mentioning, like that, like ZoomInfo, for example,
Yeah, so ZoomInfo, Apollo, like those are decent tools. Like ZoomInfo is a little bit better for corporate.
Okay.
Apollo is decent. There's all sorts of data brokers out there too. It's a very that you can just buy on a per record basis. Data Axle's one of them. Axle is spelt wrong, AXLE. And those ones you can literally just make a list, right? So again, that's not using AI, but it's probably it's a cheap way to do it. I've used all of them before. And you can just then buy the list and then you use AI to contact the list.
That makes sense. And I'm sure Acquire buys lists as well, right, on the back end. Like, have you felt like the data accuracy is pretty good? Like, because in the past I used to do like the whole We Buy Ugly Home stuff, and a lot of times that data was like pretty old.
I mean, it's hit and miss.
Yeah.
So we do buy it. We actually just recently, maybe 2 months ago, started buying lists that actually do have employee size information. I haven't done, we haven't been doing it long enough to really check. I mean, we have, I just haven't done it yet to check how accurate it is. But I know we are getting like about a 40% good fit ratio. We were before getting like 20-ish, 25 since we moved to that list. For us, good fit ratio is like usually like 2 million or higher in revenue.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone have any use cases that they've played with or that they're curious about?
Hey, this is Mark. As one of the senior statesmen on the call, I am not tech savvy at all. Don't claim to be, but what I found is, well, let me say a couple things. Like for those of us who have not taken a dive into AI, stick a toe in the water. I think your point, if you're not using it, you're falling behind in this marketplace. I do think there's a democratization of knowledge that it allows for. And everyone on this call is clever, but I would want to preserve my cleverness for like strategic matters versus writing job descriptions and stuff like you mentioned earlier. So I think that leveraging it for that makes a lot of sense and create space and brain power for driving your business. As I'm further down, like deal search stuff you're talking about sounds wicked impressive, but I'm coming past that point. I'm using it for agreement assessment. So I have a massive purchase agreement. I'm not an attorney. It's all legalese to me, but I just drop it in the chat and say, assess my risk and give me recommendations. And I have point by point, line by line, clause by clause analysis of an agreement that, to me, the changes look innocuous, but expose me to unreasonable risk had I accepted them. So in a matter of minutes, I did something that would probably cost me 4 or 5 hours of attorney's fees had I not done that myself. So there's a lot of savings of time, but also money in that.
That's an excellent point, and I think we'll be at the forefront in changing how we work with lawyers for these types of deals going forward. Because I mean, once you've seen enough deals, you already know what good looks like in this type of transaction. You know what matters, right? I think there's probably a world in the very near future that counsel really just on both sides really just reviews what AI has done, and it's a fraction of the cost. 100%. All like other things that are totally doable now that I would say were cost prohibitive. If you have like your business manufacturing business, you could get copies of contracts with every single client, and then throw them in and actually analyze them for risks. That's just something that unfortunately with like project-based work, it's just cost prohibitive to do when you have a whip that has like 80 jobs on it, right? Totally doable now with ChatGPT, right? And you don't have to look at it. It'll literally just tell you, what's missing, where risk might exist. Obviously not a counsel, not legal advice.
Well, I can't resist jumping in on that on the legal discussion. Be sure if you are going to explore prompts like that, be sure to remind ChatGPT you're state specific, because state law can vary wildly on how they term these transactions.
That's a great point, Doug. My attorney's in Pennsylvania. I'm in California, and he's been caught on a couple of more nanny state laws that we have over here versus Pennsylvania. But I think to Hayden's point, I've trained Chat, like I'm looking at a manufacturing business in California. It knows that, so it automatically catches those things for me. And to be clear, I'm not doing this myself. I'm taking my assessments to my attorney, so I have a starting point of general knowledge. I'm not trying to do it myself, and I don't recommend it either.
Yeah.
I just tested something and brought a couple pretty large sort of compliance issues to both our legal counsel, that charges me like $700 an hour, and Deep Research, and had them look at like something specific to New York and California. And they both came back to me with the same answer, but the Deep Research answer was way more complete and filled with sources. Yeah. I really do recommend Deep Research. Like it's worth the $200 a month, especially for anything you need, like something a little bit more complete or exhaustive.
You can get it for the $20 on Perplexity as well. So you can use Perplexity, point it to 4.0, ChatGPT 4.0, and then use the Deep Research function, and that's just $20 a month. And it gives you like effectively, the only thing missing is that you can't train it. It doesn't remember who you are because it's not ChatGPT natively.
How many does it give you? Like how many times can you?
$20. So the free version is like 5, I think, limited, and then $20. I don't think it's unlimited, but I use it a lot, so I haven't hit the limit yet.
So I think even with Pro, I think on Deep Research you only limit like 100 a month.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
I've used it quite a bit, and I don't know if I've used it 100 times or not, but take a look at Perplexity from that perspective. Cool. And then you can also search, you can also use like other logic engines, right? Reasoning engines besides just Deep Research, like DeepSeek or something like that if you wanted to. Alex is not on the call. Robin.
Yeah, I'm on the call.
Yeah.
I'm not as quite up to speed as Hayden, but I play with it for other reasons. I think last time I saw you, Hayden, you have a pretty beefy gaming computer. You may have fun playing around with a llama, and there's a IDE for that. So ChatGPT for all. Anybody else on the call that has a reasonable computer may find success with that. You can download those models directly to your machine, and then it's nice because you can do local embedding. So that's RAG. So if you have issue constraints with like ChatGPT uploading like 10 documents at a time, you can just point that llama, whatever model you pick, directly on your machine, and then you can push it at 1,000 documents on your machine, whatever you have there. So yeah, I don't know what you were going to say about the idea there, Luther, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Alex has been playing quite a bit with this because he and I chat quite a bit, and I was just telling him that maybe Alex is a good resource if anybody had some. I was just gonna like volunteer you out there, man.
Hayden may find this interesting. What I found today was openrouter.ai. I've looked at it for like 2 minutes, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there yet. But as you are playing around there, Hayden.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Have you jailbroken your llama yet?
I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, you can. You can get rid of all of the censorship and yeah.
You've been having some fun, Hayden, I see.
Unfortunately, but if I had more time, I would.
Would you use it to teach class?
Would I use it to teach class?
Yeah, like have your own AI, a version of you teach class, because one of my other mentors right now is in California, and he's actually uploading all of his facial features, his responses and everything to teach class pretty soon, where you won't be able to tell the difference when he's teaching and answering.
Yeah, that's the reason I haven't done videos of all of the training, because soon it'll be this professional me doing all the training, and it'll just be ChatGPT or whatever AI version. Yeah, it still looks a little fake.
Yeah.
It's not bad. There's like one YouTuber who's doing it a lot. It's a woman, can't remember her name, but she now just has like the ChatGPT avatar of her, and she just kind of looks like a little stoned or something when she's talking. But I didn't notice it until 5 minutes into a video, and then she mentions it, and you're like, oh, and then you watch it, and you're like, okay, yeah, I see now.
Right.
But yeah,
the lip sync
100%.
is always off a little bit. Like the lip sync is usually where you're like, what's going on with her?
You know what it was with her? Is she just kept on going like this.
Oh, got it.
Oh, wow.
She was, yeah, that's crazy.
Bobbing.
What's the name? Can you plug the name, or you don't want to? Or I'll get it from you in Slack if you know. So
For that, I just don't remember it. I'll look it up. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sweet.
But for teaching, yeah, I mean, my kids have been using it for everything. They probably use it almost as much as I do. Someone just the other day told me we are the most AI forward family in our town in Mexico, which is probably true.
That's cool, man. What part of Mexico are you in, Hayden?
We're near Mexico City, sort of like a Hamptons to Mexico City, hour and a half away, Lake Mountain. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Because we're thinking about getting out of Arizona just because of the drive. You've been here because of the driving in certain other parts and stuff that's going on right now. We're thinking about leaving. So, we looked at Mexico, but we're not for sure about, where to stay at there.
Well, Mexico's great. Been here for 20 years.
Sweet.
Any other AI questions, use cases, or things that, if you're curious about a use case, we can talk about it here. There's probably a few people who can chat about it.
Cover everything that you were hoping to cover, Hayden?
What's that?
Cover everything that you were hoping to cover?
I think so. Just to give some examples, again, the outcome here is that if you're currently using AI, just to start using it. I will be happy if that's what you got out of this. And like I said, there are elements of the training so first thing on the deal, if you're in the deal search side, first thing I would say is train whichever LLM you're using with your investment thesis, number one, and make it memorize your investment thesis. And then from there, you can use it to screen all of the SIMs that you collect. You could, for example, just thinking out loud here, you could, if you want to do an investment committee presentation and you find investment committees are annoying to fill out, you could just download the investment committee sort of slide deck, upload it into ChatGPT, and basically ask it to give you all the information and upload the sim, and then obviously look at the results and fill in anything it can't answer. I will say that I really do like using ChatGPT to ask me questions. And I always ask you to ask one by one because otherwise it just overwhelms you. But I really like asking ChatGPT to ask me questions because it sort of gets those unknown unknowns out of you. So I would say try that as a use case as well.
Sorry, can you give an example? Hayden, I may have missed it.
Yeah, okay, well, even that AI hiring example that I pasted in, ask 5 questions, one at a time in order to understand the role. Sorry, there's a bit of background noise. For meeting prep, I have like an AI meeting prep that basically I say, please ask me a series of questions one by one to help me prepare for the meeting. And it just takes some thinking at, and then I'll do that for like maybe a minute, 2 minutes before the meeting, and it gives me like a really well prepared meeting. I've also got ChatGPT, like a custom GPT for email, and it actually sends emails out when I remember to do it, but I could automate it. That actually automatically prepares meetings and prepares other people for meetings. I have like an AI journal prompt that asks me questions about sort of the things that matter to me for journaling. So usually it'll ask me something related to gratitude. Usually it'll ask me like what the bottleneck is, right? That's something I always journal about. What's the one thing? And then usually I have it just kind of programmed to ask me questions about like my role as a father or a husband, right? Yeah, I use it for everything.
No, that makes sense. No, thank you for that. Yeah, I've done this where like, there's like a 50 or 60 page document that will get referenced, or a 100-page document that'll get referenced into a meeting later on. And I can just upload it. And then on my drive into work or wherever, I ask questions, like I ask it to prepare me for the meeting. And then I've also done it where I've uploaded like the LinkedIn profiles of the people attending the meeting. So it gives a perspective of where that person's viewpoint would be for that meeting based on the topic, which is kind of interesting. It actually helped me with the interview recently, where I uploaded the interviewer's LinkedIn profile and my resume and the job description. And I said, like, let's prepare. And it helped me with like what that person has spoken about publicly in the past and where that person has said some statements and says like, based on these statements, you may get asked like these questions. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, I think along with reverse order, that was fascinating. I didn't think about that stuff there. That's some powerful stuff. You're talking about having it ask you questions. I think also in the training, to think about using AI, not just like make this, write me an email, all right, but challenge AI. Make this sound more professional, give it gravitas and so forth. So make sure that you kind of give it a personality versus just ask and answer. You get much more rigorous output from that way as well.
I have a tendency within, I've been told in the past within a company that I can come off as intimidating. And sometimes when trying to like resolve an issue, I just want to get it done, right? I'll just ask AI like, make this less intimidating. And it's so much better than me. I'm like, wow, I actually almost every time I compliment it. I'm saying that's superb, because I just never have said it in that way.
No, yeah, listen, I like where I am right now, like in this, like, the heating negotiations, I run all my emails to the seller through that to say, make sure, like de-jerkify this email, like in case I'm being a little bit too caustic or something. It really does sort of like give you a chance to pause a little bit and be thoughtful about what you're saying.
Yep.
All right. All right, everybody. Well, thank you, Hayden. I think this is really helpful. A lot of good info here. Anybody have any closing thoughts or questions, even if we move back to deal flow, deal action, deal activity?
Yeah, hey, is deep research with Google Bard?
Yeah, it's funny. The deep research I'm talking about is actually a ChatGPT Pro feature.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, they just took what Google was. They just took their name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Doug. Good to see you guys too.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Great call.
All right,
Hayden.
everyone, take care.
Good question.
All right, everybody, have a great day and good week. We'll see you again next week.